Have the ring. And we'll start with our stretches like we always do. So rolling back, go ahead and kick one leg to the ceiling. Shoulders are going to shrug down out of the ears. And while we're stretching out the back of the legs here, focus on your breath. The breath is up high in the rib cage. Your abs are tight and pulled in, and try to keep your abs tight and pulled in the whole time. Shoulders are rolling down and back. Lengthen the back of the neck. And I keep pulling the leg in, but drop it out to the side to open up the hip. And the lower leg is still long and straight on the floor, but if you ever need to bend it, you can to help keep the hips more stable. Keep pulling on that ring or strap to stretch a little deeper. And you're going to go ahead and bring the leg back up to the ceiling and cross over the center line and pull it in. Shoulders are sliding down, lengthen the back of the neck. Pull the leg in a little deeper if you can. And then bring it right back to center. We're going to do the same stretch with the other leg. Still taking the deep breaths. That lower leg on the ground is still an active leg, so make sure it's reaching long, like you're stretching out of the hip joint. Pull the lifted leg in a little deeper. And then when you're ready for that inner thigh stretch, drop the leg out to the side, open up the hip. Try to keep both shoulders on the ground and hips facing the ceiling. Stretch a little deeper if you can. Go ahead and bring the leg up to the ceiling, and then you're going to cross over the center line and pull it in. Breath is still up high in the rib cage. Do one more deep breath as you pull that leg in a little deeper, and then bring it right back to center. You're going to take the foot off the ring or out of the band, have both knees bent and feet flat on the floor. If you have the ball or ring, you're going to lengthen your arms to the ceiling and squeeze as tight as you can. Try to keep those arms long and straight, roll the shoulders down and back, and you're just going to rock your pelvis. Feel it imprint into the low back, imprint into the mat, and then rock your pelvis forward so your back arches. Rocking back and forth. Still taking the deep breath up high in the rib cage. Press the toes of the floor. Do one more, rocking back and then rocking forward. I'll rock right to the middle so we're neutral. That way hip bones and puke bone is on the same plane. You're going to flex the upper spine up, curl up, look into the belly, and then rest head and shoulders down. Now as you're flexing the upper spine, the lumbar spine in your pelvis should not be changing position. If you have that ring or ball, try to squeeze it a little tighter. Shoulders are shrugging down out of the ears, not gripping into the neck. Now curl up on this one and stay curled up, and we're going to try to hold this flexion, but you could always rest head and shoulders down if you wanted to. Both legs are going to come up to tabletop. You could do the alternating toe taps now, or if you want to work harder, glue the legs together and do both legs. Remember, we are trying to maintain neutral in the low back, keep the pelvis in the same position as the legs lower and left. Trying to stay flexed up, looking into the belly, squeeze that ring or ball a little tighter. Focus on the breath up high in the rib cage. You can keep alternating the toe taps or just do two more with both legs squeezing together. Now, when you bring the legs back up, you can go ahead and rest on head and shoulders. Rest your feet, and we'll do some bridging. So if you can, keep the ring or ball between your hands, but you could always get rid of it and just do this with hands by your side. Rock your pelvis back, so you start with the imprint. Your feet are not completely together. Those heels are about sit bone distance apart, and you're gonna lift the hips up so you come into the bridge. Press the toes into the mat, keep knees in line with hips, and then lay your spine down, one vertebrae down at a time, right back into the imprint. The whole time you're trying to hollow out the abdomen, lift the hips up, squeeze that ball or ring a little tighter if you have it, and then rolling right back down. Do one more. Lifting the hips, squeeze the glutes, and then rolling back down into your rest. So we're going to do single leg. If you want to give yourself a different challenge, you could put that ball between your knees. You could put the ring between the knees. It's just not usually that comfortable. But with the single leg bridge, one leg extends to straight, and then peel your spine up, trying to keep the pelvis level, and then roll your spine back down. So if you did put the ball between your knees, try to squeeze it as tight as possible. lifting the hips up, and then rolling back down. We'll do one more on this side. Lengthen that leg, reaching out of the hip, squeeze that ring or ball a little tighter, and then rolling down. Go ahead and switch legs. One foot down, one leg straight, and then lift the hips up. Hold at the top for a deep breath up high in the rib cage, and then slowly rolling down. Hopefully your pelvis lands even and not one hip before the other. Lifting up, hold at the top for a deep breath, press the toes of the mat, and then rolling down. This is our last one. Draw the navel in deeper. Remember to always pull up on the pelvic floor, lengthen that leg a little more, and then slowly rolling back down into your rest. Now the lifted leg is going to bend and bring the ankle over the opposite knee. You don't need your props anymore and get rid of those. You're going to go ahead and pull it in for a hip stretch. So with the ankle on the opposite knee, pull that leg into your chest. Take a deep breath up high in the rib cage again, and then we'll go ahead and switch legs. Remember to keep the shoulders down out of the ears. And then right back to center. Now bring the legs up to tabletop. You could always go back to your props with this one and put the ring between the ankles or the ball between the ankles or knees. I'm going to choose to use these weights, the little weighted balls for the 100. We're going to curl up, look into the belly, reach the arms long, lengthen the legs out to straight if you can, and now you're pumping the arms. Inhaling for 5 counts, exhaling for 5 counts. Squeeze the legs together. Draw the navel in deeper. And remember to shrug the shoulders down out of the ears. Focus on the breath up high in the rib cage. Inhaling for 5, exhaling for 5. Try to get the legs a little bit lower if you can, as long as you're not feeling stress in the low back. Inhaling for 5 counts, exhaling for 5. Try to get longer, straighter legs too, and get the legs a little bit lower. Focus on the upper back. Shoulder blades are sliding down towards the hips. This is going to be our last 10 count. Now, after you exhale, try to hold everything still. Curl up higher, reach longer arms, longer legs, and then you can bring it right back in and rest. So you're going to lengthen one leg to the ceiling, one leg falls down to the floor, and we're going to do circles. So you could start that leg circle in either direction, because we are going to go in both. Inhale as you start, exhale as you finish. The lower leg is tight and strong and reaching, but you could always bend that lower leg if you needed to. When you bring that leg to the ceiling, hold for a moment, flex both feet, and go in the opposite direction. Think longer legs, lengthening the back of the neck. Pressing the shoulders of the floor. When you bring that leg to the ceiling, grab on and pull it in for a stretch. We're also going to do a little hip stretch too, so just hug that bent knee into your chest. So same leg, just bend the knee and hug it in. We'll go ahead and switch. Opposite leg now to the ceiling, reach through the toes and draw your circles. Inhale as you start, exhale as you finish. You're trying to keep the hips squared off facing the ceiling. Press the back of the shoulders of the floor, lengthening the back of the neck. When you bring that leg up, you're going to flex both feet, go in the opposite direction. Crossing over that center line on the lift up. Imagine you're tightening that belt around your waist, pulling the belly in. You have one more full circle rolling through the hip. When you bring that leg up, grab onto the straight leg and pull it in for the stretch again. Now bend the knee and hug that knee into your chest. We're going into the ab series next. So keep that lifted leg bent, curl up, look into the belly, opposite leg lifts, and then go right into your single leg stretch. You are exhaling when you reach that leg long, stretching out of the hip, reaching through the toes. And use the upper back to shrug your shoulders down out of the ears. Draw the navel in a little deeper. Try to curl up a little higher. And now you're gonna bring both legs together, stay curled up, both legs reach forward as your arms extend back, and then come right back in for double leg stretch. Inhale as you open, exhale back to center. Still trying to narrow the waistline. Remember, deep breath up high in the rib cage. Give yourself enough time to fully extend those legs to straight. You have one more. And then right back to center, we go into scissor kick. So one leg to the ceiling, one leg falls to the floor, and then switch. Try not to grip into your neck. Try to increase your flexibility, pulling that leg in a little deeper with each one. Just do one more kick on each side, and then both legs are going to be at the ceiling when you finish. Rest on your head and shoulders. Press the arms downward into the mat. Find your neutral. Hip bones and pubic bone on the same plane, and then both legs lower and lift without moving the pelvis or the lumbar spine. Focus on the inner thighs, squeezing the legs together. Think longer, straighter legs. You're gonna do your last two. And then when you bring those legs right back up to the ceiling, bend the legs to tabletop so we can go into crisscross. Fingers are laced together behind your head. Curl up, look into the belly, and then twist towards the bent leg. Exhale when you rotate. Keeping elbows wide, shoulders slid down. Longer leg reaching out of the hip, down through the toes. Still hollowing out the abdomen. Twist a little further. I want you to twist to one side, and you're just going to hold it. Hold this rotation, curl up higher, reach for a longer leg, and then we'll go to the other side and hold it. Keeping elbows wide, curling up, shoulders slid down, and then you can come back to center and rest. Lengthen the legs down to straight, reach your arms way back overhead, and just stretch, lifting the rib cage. Now bring both arms to the ceiling. You can hold the ring, your ball, or even the weights in your hands. I'm gonna go with the ring. If you use weights in your hands, it actually makes roll up a little easier. That counterweight helps pull you up. So we're gonna curl up, look into the belly, come all the way up off the floor, and stretch out over straight legs. Stack your spine up to straight, grow tall, and then slowly roll down. The whole time you're pulling up on the pelvic floor, pulling the belly in, slowly rolling your spine right back down to the mat. Don't let your ribs flare up. Keep pulling the belly in, and then come all the way back up off the floor. Think longer legs, reaching out through the heels, coming back up to straight spine, and then rolling back down. Keep those arms strong. They're reaching. If you have a prop, you're squeezing, forcing every ounce of air out of the lungs as you stretch over the legs. Stack up to straight, grow tall, and then rolling back down. Arms to the ceiling. Hold your arms up, take a deep breath in. Exhale, pulling all the way up off the floor. And now after this roll up, we are gonna stay seated. So stack your spine up to straight, grow tall. And I'm gonna exchange my ring for the little weights for this one to make my arms work a little harder, but you can keep holding on to your ring or even use your band. We're gonna sit tall and rotate to one side, come back to center, and then rotate to the other side. Try to grow taller, narrow the waistline. Really focus on the transverse abdominals, pulling the lowest part of the abdomen deeper. Still pull up on the pelvic floor. Twist a little further with each one. You have one more twist on each side. Last rotation. And when you come back to center, we're gonna hold it. So we're gonna go into rolling like a ball. So make sure you have enough room on your mat behind you. Scooting forward, you're in this little ball shape and your knees are squeezing together. I'm still gonna use the weights, so you could squeeze a ring in your hands. You could just reach your arms, or of course, keep your hands on your shins to keep yourself in this tight little ball as you rock. But if you want that extra challenge, don't hold on to the legs with the hands. And you're always trying to come up and balance and not let the feet touch the floor. Still breathing. Draw the navel in deeper. Still till those inner thighs work hard to glue the legs together. And you're trying so hard not to grip into your neck. Do one more. When you're back up to seated, you're going to hold it. Now that we're here, we're going to go right into teaser from a seated position. So lift the tabletop legs. You could just hold on to the legs. Hands would be on the back of the thighs the whole time. But if you don't need hands holding on the legs, reach your arms. You can keep the legs at tabletop, but if you could work harder, extend your legs up to straight. Squeezing the inner thighs together, pull the belly in. If you can, reach those arms way overhead. Still breathing. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and bend your knees and then rest back down. So half roll backs, knees are gonna be bent, but with your feet flat. Your arms are straight out in front of you reaching. You could hold the ring or ball. If you have weights, we're gonna stretch that arm back behind you. Even if your hands are free, reach that arm back. And if you have the ring, both arms obviously go with each other as you rotate from side to side. The rotation making the obliques work, but if this ever bothers the low back, you could always skip the rotation and just fall back halfway, still facing forward. Try to twist a little further with each one. Shoulders still shrugged down. Keep the legs in the same spot too, so they're not tipping as you're rotating. Glue the feet to the floor to make the back of the legs work a little harder. You can do one more on each side. This is your last one. When you come back to center, we're gonna hold it. Good. We're gonna get rid of any little props that you have because we're going into mermaid and then hopefully build into side bend stretch. So mermaid sit facing towards the long edge of your mat, and the Z sit, you could sit with both legs straight if you want, or crossed Indian style legs. Hand on the floor and stretch away from the feet. Come back up and stretch over the feet. Inhale as you fall over and stretch. Shoulders still shrugged down. Exhale, coming back up and over. Now fall over and hold, and if you can, rotate, looking at the floor. Twist back to face front, and then come all the way back up and stretch. Stay facing the same direction. Don't swing the legs over yet, because we're going into our side bend, so the feet are just gonna come closer to the bottom edge of the mat. Top leg is in front, and your hand is on the floor. You could do this on your elbow if you need to. You can always keep the lower knee on the floor. But if you can, lift up and lengthen those legs and going right back down. So if you needed to see the modified version, knee stays down and you stretch. Okay, we'll do two more. So at least we'll get 4 of these on this side. You can always do more or less. Breathing into the ribs as you lift and stretch to the ceiling. Now when you rest back down, we will go into our mermaid on the other side. So swing the legs over. Hand is on the floor. Square off your hips. Try to keep the sit bone close to the floor as you stretch away. And then coming back up and over the leg. Deep breath up high in the rib cage. Good. Hold this one, and when you're ready, rotate and look at the floor. Twist back to face front, and then come back up and stretch. Going into our side bend stretch, hand on the floor again, but now your feet go down towards the bottom edge of the mat, extending the length of your mat, and then lift up and stretch. Balance, and then resting back down. Focus on the deep breath up high in the rib cage. Remember, you can always keep that knee on the floor if you needed to. We got 2 more of these. Last one, lifting up and stretch. When you rest down, you're gonna go all the way down onto your side. You can prop yourself up onto your elbow though, and then you're gonna try to bring that hand underneath your head and the top arm bent as well. So both hands are behind your head. This is a little bit harder to balance, so it's okay to keep that hand on the floor. And then if you wanted to, you could go all the way down to the mat. We're going into the side leg series. So the legs drawn back so that you're in a straight line is a lot harder on the balance. So feel free to bring them forward. You're gonna lift the top leg and lower. And you're lifting and lowering with the pattern of your breath. Inhale, up, exhale, lower. Shoulders roll down and back. Keep pushing the floor away through the elbow. And you're trying to narrow the waistline. Imagine you're in that tight belt around your waist. narrowing your waistline. Every time the legs meet together on the floor, activate the inner thighs, pull up on the pelvic floor, trying to make every exercise as hard as possible. Still taking the deep breath. Do one more, and then you're going to hold that leg at hip height and just draw little circles. Still shrugging the shoulders down. Remember that lower leg is still a working leg. Don't let it get lazy. Now flex the foot and go in the opposite direction, keeping that leg at hip height, reaching out through the heel for a longer leg. Pull the belly in deeper. Now keep that leg long, reaching out of the hip. You're going to swing the leg forward and then back. Feel that hamstring stretch when you kick forward, and feel those glutes work hard when you kick back. That lower leg is still a working leg. It's considered your anchor here, gluing you to the floor. Keep the upper body strong and in control so you're not moving. Not letting the ribs sink to the floor. Do one more forward kick. Last kick back. And then you can go ahead, stack the legs, lower all the way down to the mat with the upper body, because now we're going to bring yourself into that straight line if you're not already there, and we're lifting the legs. The top hand is hopefully on the hip, but you can always keep it on the floor if you need to. Squeeze the inner thighs together, pulling the belly in. Now lift both legs and hold them up and just move the top leg. Don't let the lower leg fall to the floor. You're pointing the feet, you're reaching through the toes for longer legs. Remember to pull the shoulder blades together. Now hold the legs together, but don't drop them. Just the lower leg falls, then bring it right back up. Lower and lift. You're pulling the belly in, your shoulders are shrugging down out of the ears. Do your last lower and lift, and then you get a rest back down. We're going to go over to the other side. So if you propped yourself up onto your elbow, you're going to do the same thing here. The legs can go forward slightly to help with the balance or draw them back. Both hands behind your head for the harder challenge. Shoulders roll down and back, so you're not gripping into your neck. Top leg lifts and lowers. Point as you lift, flex as you lower. Try not to let the rib cage sink to the floor, so you got to make those obliques work hard to keep that straight line through your spine, even through the neck. That lower leg is still a tight, strong working leg. Every time the legs meet together for that quick moment, activate the inner thighs. Bring the leg at hip height, reach through the toes, and just draw little circles. Don't let that lower leg get lazy. Keep it tight and strong. Go ahead and flex the foot, going in the opposite direction. Reaching out through the heel. Now hold the legs together, or just hold that top leg stationary. You're going to swing forward and back. Don't let that lower leg move. Keep it tight and strong. Try not to let the upper body sway. Pull the shoulder blades together. Remember, you're still breathing. And try to kick forward a little more if you can to increase the flexibility in the back of that leg. Every time that leg kicks back, you're squeezing the glutes, but we just have one more though. When you bring the legs back together, hold them together, and now you get a rest all the way down to the floor. Using that lower arm for neck support, your legs are together in a straight line down the center of your mat. Both legs lift and lower. The top arm is rested over the hips if you can challenge your balance. Squeeze the inner thighs together, point the feet and reach through the toes. Think longer legs, always pulling up on the pelvic floor. Now lift both legs and hold them up. This is just where the top leg moves. Don't let that lower leg gradually fall to the floor. Hollow out the abdomen. Now hold the legs together and just move the lower leg. Lower leg falls, bring it back up. Hopefully you're still breathing. Don't let that top leg move. Keep it tight and strong. You can do your last one, and then you can finally rest. Now roll onto your belly. While you're on your abdomen here, you're going to bring your hands underneath your forehead for neck support. Your legs are long and straight, and just lift both legs and lower the legs. Both legs go up and down, shoulders shrug down out of the ears. And think about trying to narrow the waistline, pulling the belly in. Now lift both legs, hold them up, and you're going to do little beats where you tap your heels together. So the legs are quickly opening and closing. Still pull the belly in. Lift the legs a little higher. And now hold the heels together, but bend the knees wide. Squeezing the heels together, both knees lift and lower. Shoulders are shrugging down. Your abs are still tight and pulled in. Do 3 more lifts, still pressing the heels together, still pulling up on the pelvic floor, and then you get to relax. Lengthen the legs, but you want them about as wide as the mat. Draw your elbows to your waist, and we're just gonna do a little baby swan here, so you're just lifting the rib cage up and then lower back down. You're trying not to use the arms, just your back extensors to lift the rib cage a little and lower. Keep your neck in neutral, so you're not lifting the chin up and looking straight ahead. You're just looking towards the floor. Do 1 more, and then you can rest. Now we're going for the full swan. So we start just the same as the baby swan, using your back first, and then the arms, pushing the floor away, and you come up. Lower all the way back down into your rest. Just lifting as far as that low back will let you. Remember, your abs are tight and pulled in the whole time. Tops of the feet stay on the floor. The legs are long. And try not to grip into the neck. Lifting all the way up. Do 1 more. And now you get a rest back down. So we're going to go into our rocking, swan dive rocking catch. We'll go slow, and then you can resume going slow. But if you're ready to increase, you can increase when I do, the speed, basically. So we're going to lift the rib cage up. Now, when you lower down, you reach the arms and lift the legs. Tuck the elbows by your side again, so you can push the floor away. The legs are down when you lift the rib cage, but then when the rib cage falls, the legs lift. Now you can keep going at this speed, but if you can get that momentum going, you're gonna rock, trying to get those legs up as high as you can. Remember not to grip into the neck, and your abs are tight and pulled in the whole time. You're exhaling when you reach those arms and lift the legs. You can do 1 or 2 more. When you're ready, you're gonna go ahead and rest, and you can go ahead and pick the hips up and go into a child's pose stretch, rounding your spine, C-curving. We are gonna come into all fours position on your hands and knees next. So we can just do some flexion and extension through your spine again, but this one, really round your spine towards the ceiling, C-curving, tucking the tailbone under, and then drop the rib cage down, reach forehead and tailbone to the ceiling. So if you want to get a little fancy with this, you could do more of a snake pattern where chin goes to your chest, then you feel that thoracic spine going towards the ceiling, mid-back, and then lastly the tailbone tucks under, and then you go in the opposite direction. So now your tailbone goes to the ceiling, then your mid-back, shoulder blades pull together, and lastly chin lifts up. So it's kind of fun to articulate through the spine and give it that wave motion as you flex and then move into the extension. After you come back to center, you could do more of those if you wanted to, but when you come back to center, you're in a straight line. Wrists are right underneath your shoulders, shoulders shrug down. Curl the toes under, lift the knees up. So the knees are just hovering, and that is optional. You can always keep the knees down. You could just stay here and hold this and draw the navel in and pull up on the pelvic floor. If you can, add to it and lift the leg. One leg comes up, keeping it bent 90 degrees, and lowering it back down. So hopefully nothing else in that body is moving except for the leg, and alternate. So as that leg is kicking, the lower knee just stays right in the same spot, hovering about 2 inches off the floor. Use your breath too to help you get through it. You're exhaling on that lift up. Focus on the glutes, shoulders shrug down, pulling the belly in. You can do one more lift on each leg, or at least feel evened up. And then when you're ready, you're gonna go ahead and rest the knees down, go into a child's pose stretch. So we're gonna do leg pull. Leg pull is where it looks like you're in a plank and you're alternating a leg lift. So it's the same rule with the upper body, shoulders down, shoulder blades spread apart, away from your spine. Lengthen the legs back to straight. You can also stay on your knees. You could do this on your elbows. But if you can, lift one leg, lower down, lift the other leg, and lower. So this straight leg lifting is just a little lift, not too big because you don't want to move the pelvis or the lumbar spine. You're trying to keep your core tight and strong. Still focus on the arms, pushing the floor away. Squeeze the glutes and you lift the leg. Finish up the last set. And then when you're ready, you're going to go ahead and rest your knees down, sit back to your heels, and just stretch. Now you're going to come back to seated. When you sit, we're going to do spine stretch forward. This one you can use your weights, your ball, or your ring. I'm going to do the weights. Arms are out in front of you. For spine stretch forward, your legs are straight but about as wide as the mat. Take a deep breath as you grow tall, and then upper spine flexes forward. Inhale, grow tall, rolling the shoulders down and back, and then stretching forward. So even as you round your spine forward, your shoulders should still be shrugging down, not rising high into your neck. Stacking back up. Exhale forward, inhale, growing tall. So if you have that ball or ring, squeeze it a little tighter. Keep those arms long and straight. Don't let the legs get lazy. You're going to do one more. And then come right back to center. So go ahead and draw the legs together. Arms are going to be straight out in front of you again. Tuck the tailbone, fall back halfway. So if you have the ball or ring, you're squeezing into it. And we're going to draw a big circle with the arms while we're in this reclining position. So when you're in this reclining position, it is a tilt in the pelvis, flexing that lumbar spine. You're hollowing out the abdomen. You're squeezing the legs together. Go ahead and change direction of the circle that we're drawing with the arms. Inhale as you start, exhale as you finish. You'll notice that the abs have to work harder when those arms get way up overhead. Try not to grip into your neck. When your arms are over your lap, you're going to hold, take a deep breath, and then come right back up to seated. Go ahead and get rid of your props. So this one we're going to do leg pull or face the ceiling. Your hands are back behind you, about as wide as the mat. Point the feet, draw the legs together, and lift the hips up. You could just stay here and hold, or you could put your hips back to the floor, but if you can, add the leg lift. Exhale as you kick that leg to the ceiling. Remember, your abs are tight and pulled in. Shoulders are shrugging down out of the ears. Try to get that leg longer, reaching out of the hip. Try not to drop the hips. You have one more lift on each leg, still breathing. After you drop your hips down, you can fold forward over the legs and stretch. So go ahead and bend your right knee as you stack your spine up to seated or straight. And we're gonna go into our tree. Sit tall, keep that lower leg long and straight. The bent leg is gonna extend up for the hamstring stretch, and then bend it. Kick it up again and bend. Do one more and hold it. Hold that leg straight. Walk your hands up the leg. If you can deepen the stretch, flex the foot. Shoulders shrug down, your abs are in. Keep the leg lifted as you walk your hands down it and fall back. So we're just falling back halfway. Hang on here using your abs. If you can, let go of the leg, but don't let the leg fall. Remember, your shoulders are down, your abs are in, both legs are working legs. Bring your hands back to the leg, and we're gonna climb back up that tree and pull yourself into the leg again and stretch. And then you can go ahead and rest. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Sit tall, kick the leg up, bend, kick, bend. Remember that lower leg is still working. Kick that lifted leg to straight. Walk your hands up the leg, flex the foot, pull it in, shoulders are down. And now you're gonna walk your hands down as you fall back. Remember, you can keep holding onto the leg, but if you can, let go. Try not to rotate, you're still squared off, still breathe. Bring your hands back to the leg, walk to the top to give yourself another hamstring stretch, pull it in a little deeper, and then you can finally relax. Bend both knees, so soles of the feet are together, knees are really wide, and let them fall to the floor to open up the hips. And I'll just fold forward into the stretch. Hopefully you're still breathing, breath up high in the rib cage while your abs are tight and pulled in. And then you can go ahead and take a little break. So your knees are gonna be bent on this, and we're gonna do teaser. We're gonna get into it from the seated position and do some leg lowers with the legs. You really only go to the next step when you're ready for the extra challenge. So your knees are bent, hands to the back of your thighs, shoulders roll down and back, fall back halfway so we can balance behind the sit bones and lift the legs to tabletop. So just like we did before, if you can, let go, but you can feel free just to hold on to the legs the whole time. Lengthen the legs to straight, but feel free to keep them bent if you want. Here's where it gets a little harder. You're gonna drop one leg, lift it back up. Drop the other leg, lift it back up. Still breathing. Shoulders shrug down out of the ears. Lower, lift, do one more full set. Still breathing, breath up high in the rib cage. Once those legs are together, hold them together, still breathe, and then you can go ahead and rest back down, take a little break. So we'll go into open leg rocker. Your hands move to the back of the thighs again. Knees are about as wide as your shoulders. Fall back halfway, lift those legs to tabletop. Feel free to stay here, but if you can, lengthen those legs just straight and hold on to the back of the ankles. If you can, try to keep those legs straight as you roll back to your shoulders and then come right back up to balance. Inhale as you fall back, remember with control, and then come back up and try to balance. Keep those legs long and straight. So you really gotta tell those quads to work hard to not let the knees bend. Control the legs too so that they don't go wider than your shoulders. Gotta tell those inner thighs to work hard. Do one or two more. I think I can only tolerate one more. I'll try it. But when you're ready, you're gonna come right back up to seated, and then you can relax the legs and then fold forward into straight legs. And cramps in the feet for that one. Too much pointing. So you're gonna have your knees bent and roll back onto your back again. So we're gonna do the bridging like we did earlier, but this is where we do those legs going to the ceiling for the kicks. Hands are down by your side. If you wanted to, if you had that roller, you could put the roller underneath your feet. Hands are by your side regardless. Rock the pelvis back and start in the imprint. Lift the hips up so you come up into your bridge, and now one leg kicks to the ceiling and lower back down. Kick the other leg to the ceiling. So if you have your feet on a roller, you're trying not to let that roller sneak away from you. You're also paying attention to your hips, so the hips are not gradually falling to the floor. Use your breath. Force the air out of the lungs. You kick the leg. Do one more on each side. When you rest both feet to the floor, take a deep breath, and then slowly roll your spine back down into the imprint. So we're gonna get up into the bridge again. Lift the hips up and hold. Kick one leg to the ceiling and hold it straight. The straight leg is gonna lower and lift. As you're lowering and lifting the straight leg, focus on the lower leg that's on the floor. It's pushing harder into the mat, pressing every toe into the mat. One more, and when you rest down the foot to the floor, keep the hips up, the other legs turn to lower and lift. Adding that flex and point of the foot just adds to the coordination. Your arms are long, pressing into the floor, lower and lift. You have two more. When you bring that foot to the floor, hold it, take a deep breath, and then slowly roll back down into your rest. So with the legs bent here, we're gonna do a little deeper spine twist and hip stretch. So earlier we did ankle on top of knee. This time I want you to bring knee on top of knee. And if it's the right leg on top, drop the legs to the left. If it's your left leg on top, drop your legs to the right. So when we get into this twist, also twist through your neck so you're looking in the opposite direction of the legs in that full spinal rotation. Think wringing the air out of the lungs. Bring the legs right back to center. Go ahead and cross them in the other direction. Dropping the legs, twisting, looking away from the legs. And then when you're ready, you can come right back to center. Uncross the legs, lengthen your legs down to straight. We'll just do a stretch here before we get into teaser. So reach those arms way back overhead, lift the rib cage and stretch. Now bring arms to the ceiling, pull those ribs in. So you have that feeling of pulling bottom ribs towards your hips, draw the navel in. Legs are glued together, but your feet are pointed. We're gonna try to lift both legs because we've done plenty of teasers already, but if you still need to modify it, you could just do alternating leg lifts, so just be one leg lifting as your spine comes up. And then we switch the other leg, of course. But if you can, head comes up first, glue the legs together, lift both legs off the floor as you come up. It's fine if you just need to do one leg, and then you lower all the way back down to the floor. So if you're doing the single leg, lift the other leg this time. Exhale as you lift. Hold at the top for a deep breath. And then slowly roll down. Keep pulling those ribs in. Keep gluing the legs together. Squeezing the glutes. Arms to the ceiling. Shoulders are always shrugging down, not to the ears. You're exhaling every time you lift up. Focus on those inner thighs. If both legs are coming up, squeeze those inner thighs together and resting. We'll do one more. Hold at the top for a deep breath. And then slowly roll back down until you rest. Now just stretch one arm overhead. The opposite arm reaches down towards your feet. So your arms are lengthening, but in opposite directions. And then we'll go ahead and do that same thing in the other direction. Lengthening the arms. And bring both hands down by your side. Make sure you have enough room on your mat behind you so you're not going to kick the wall. Both legs, because we're doing rollover. Both legs are straight to the ceiling. Flex the feet. You could just stick with the prep where you lift the hips and drop the hips. So it's just a little hip lift, a little movement in the lumbar spine using your abs. But if you can, come all the way overhead so that your legs are parallel with the floor underneath you. And we're going to do the full rollover today. So while we're in this position, you're going to open the legs shoulder width apart and then slowly roll the spine right back down to your rest. Once the hips are on the floor, draw the legs together. And then the legs come overhead again while they stay together. Once you're in the rollover, legs open, shoulder width apart, and then you roll back down. Glue the legs together when the hips are down, and again, overhead. Hold for a deep breath, breathing into the back of the rib cage, and then slowly rolling back down, not letting head and shoulders come up. So we just did 3 like that. We're gonna switch it up a bit and start with the legs shoulder width apart, feet are still flexed. We'll just keep them flexed the whole time. We go into the rollover with the legs shoulder width apart. So of course we'll do 3 like this. Once your legs are overhead, you squeeze them together, keep them together as you roll the spine all the way back down, keeping head and shoulders on the mat. Once your hips are down, legs open. And again, 2 more. Legs together on the inhale, and then rolling back down. There's a lot of rollovers. We'll do 1 more. Legs open as you bring them overhead, squeeze the legs together, and then slowly resting back down. Keep the hips on the floor, keep your shoulders glued to the mat, but bend the legs to tabletop. So we're gonna do can-can. We do rock the pelvis so the lumbar spine is rotating, but your upper spine, thoracic spine does not move. Nothing, no tension in your neck, shoulders don't come off the floor. So just tip the legs to one side, extend both legs to straight, bend them back to tabletop, and then tip them to the other side and extend. Pay attention to the shoulders so the shoulders stay glued to the mat. I'm just twisting at the waistline to make those obliques work hard. Now the slower you move, the harder you work. So don't try to rush this one. Always think pulling up on the pelvic floor. Fully extending those legs to straight. Now to make this a little harder, let's tip and extend the legs and just hold it. Gluing the legs together, pressing the shoulders to the floor, still breathe. Think longer legs, pointing the feet, reaching through the toes, bend the knees, bring them over to the other side, and try to hold. So lengthen those legs and just hold. Still breathe. And then when you're ready, you can bend, come back to center. Good, hold the legs at tabletop, but feel free to take a break if you need to. We're gonna keep them bent, but open them like a froggy squat or a diamond. So you have the turn out in the hips and then both legs lengthen and bend. And what you wanna pay attention to on this one is your pelvis and the low back. So it does not change position as the legs go out and in. So we're really just moving through that hip joint and obviously knees. But glue the heels together, making the inner thighs work hard. You're still lengthening the back of the neck, so not pushing chin up and rolling the shoulders forward. You got to press the shoulders to the mat. Now, if you can work a little harder, extend the legs and hold it. And then if you wanted to do a little beat, so you're tapping the heels together, you could do dancer beats where the legs kind of crisscross, narrowing the waistline, pulling the belly in. Hold the legs together, bend your knees, and hug both knees into your chest for a stretch. You can even rock if you wanted to. When you're ready, you're going to rock yourself up to seated. So legs are straight out in front of you, and you're going to flex the feet. Your arms are going to reach to the ceiling, shoulders slide down out of the ears, and then fold over the legs. And try to pull yourself into the legs. Hopefully with each exhale, you sink a little deeper into the legs. Pull the toes back towards the knees. When you're ready, you can come right back up to seated, and we'll do our spine twist while you're seated. So just keep one leg straight, bend one leg, sit tall, and twist towards the bent leg. Twisting as far as you can. And then we'll go into the side bend stretch, feeling it in your back. Fold into the straight leg. Remember, the straight leg still is a flexed foot to increase the flexibility there. Sink deeper. Come back up, sit tall, but don't change legs just yet because we're going into the side bend stretch, but you feel it more so in the front of your abdomen. Feel this transverse abdominal stretching a little further. So lift the hips. It's a little tricky. You got to keep that knee on the floor. We're like, how do I get into that? And then you can rest back down to the floor. We'll do the whole thing on the other side. So opposite leg straight, sit tall, and then twist. Trying to rotate your spine a little bit more on each exhale. And then fold into the straight leg, but keep the rotation. So you're still looking at the bent leg. Sink a little deeper. Then when you come back up to seated, you stay in the rotation, but we lift up into the side bend stretch. When you're ready, you can rest. Come up onto your hands and knees. This is going to be a lunge, but you could stand if you didn't want to be on your knees. So with this one, we're kneeling. Take 1 foot forward, and you're going to walk that foot forward as far as you can, and then sink your hips forward so that you're in a lunge. Sometimes it takes a couple breaths to sink deeper into that hip flexor stretch to loosen them up. So you could hold this for as long as you'd like. But we do want to also go into that hamstring stretch, so you just shift your hips back to stretch the back side of that forward leg. Fold into the legs, of course, flexing the foot is going to deepen the stretch. Pull the belly in. Come back up, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Walk that foot forward so you get a deeper stretch, and then push your hips forward. You're trying not to rotate, so stay squared off facing forward. Shoulders are down. And when you've had enough of that, you sit your hips back so that you go into the hamstring stretch. Try to keep your abs tight and pulled in all day today. I always feel like a hypocrite saying that, but gotta say it. When you come right back up, you can sit however you're comfortable. You're just gonna shrug shoulders up and down. And I know we're coming to an end. Do a couple neck rolls. You can do both directions. And then after that, you guys are all done.